Welcome to the Culturevating Leader podcast, a podcast for founders and people leaders who know that culture isn't written in policy. It's felt in every emotion your team experiences at work. I'm Sarah Dena, co-founder of The Culturevators and managing director of New Wave Learning. And in each episode of this podcast, I explore what it really means to be a cultivating leader. You'll hear stories, insights, and practical moves for turning emotion into a strategic lever for performance, loyalty, and growth. I'm excited. So let's get into it. Okay, so welcome back to the next episode of the Cultivating Leader podcast. I am delighted to have with me today Lucy Pitt from Uptake AI. Lucy, you and I met, I can't believe it was only June 2024 that we met.
Just over a year ago.
Yeah, it feels a lot longer in a really great way, but I was really surprised to see that. And I met Lucy on one of what I think is one of the early AI immersion programs that you and Andrew were running. So Lucy, before we get into our conversation today, please, could you introduce yourself and Uptake AI to the listeners?
Absolutely. Thank you, Sarah. It's very exciting to be here. Yes, my name's Lucy. I'm co-founder of an organization called Uptake AI, and I'm really proud, I guess, to be part of this fantastic and exciting journey in the world that we now live in, with AI supercharging us. And Andrew and I saw a huge need, I guess, really early on, and that was to humanize AI and to consider all of the elements through not just a technical perspective. It impacts people, it impacts culture. And so we started out supporting people with how to get the best out of the tools. And that is pretty much because that's our day job. We play with all of the AI tools to get the best out of them, to meet and support people's day-to-day pain points. And so you came on part of that journey with us through one of the immersion programs. And, you know, we learn as much from each other as we do with our own play, because the social learning element with different people participating is what it's all about. Because no one person can ever know AI entirely forever, because it changes every day.
Yeah, well, that's what's so exciting about it for me, is that, you know, whoever claims to be an expert in AI or any technology, to I guess to a certain extent, but I think that's what's so exciting about it. It literally is something new every day. But what surprises me the most about that is that it's actually been around for a really long time, and that's been one of the shocking revelations to me, is that AI has actually been around a lot longer than I think any of us actually realize. So I'm sure we will get to it. Yeah, exactly. And here we are, kind of in the, you know, facing it in the way that we are, and possibly feeling some of the things that we are about it. As you know, I love a good chat about feelings, so let's make sure that we incorporate that element. And I know at Uptake AI, you're really committed to that kind of cultural readiness piece and mindset readiness piece. So I'm absolutely sure that our conversations will explore the dynamics, if you like, between AI, tech, culture, and leadership. But one question I'm asking all of my guests is this one. So I'm curious to know, Lucy, what does being a cultivating leader mean to you? And how does that show up in the culture at Uptake AI?
Cultivating leader is somebody who is open-minded, who is honest, who is vulnerable, who is willing. It isn't somebody that has to have done it all, knows it all, because I don't believe any one person ever is that. It's an inspiring person, but one that wants other people on the journey, and not a a solo player. So I think
Definitely.
vulnerability, honesty, inclusiveness are all part of being a cultivating leader.
I
And
love
I
that.
love it when I see that in others, showing their true self, not what
Mm.
we think people should see. And at Uptake AI, believe we're really good at that, in supporting each other with ideas and with direction. We're not afraid to say, actually, I don't agree with something, and to have a discussion around that. Um, um, I'm a big fan of Patrick Lencioni's Five Dysfunctions of a Team, and I absolutely advocate for healthy conflict, because it's how you can get to commitment when you've thrashed out all of the ideas and thoughts and feelings and opinions to something in a safe way, that you get to the best direction and solution that you all buy into and commit. And I've been in previous work situations where that hasn't been the case, and that hasn't been healthy, because it's a case of my way or the highway, and I
Mm.
don't like.
Yeah, I think that's one of the reasons I wanted to have you on this podcast, because we absolutely share that very core value of what I believe and how I would define a cultivating leader. And it's definitely around healthy first, happy later. And this idea that you have to be able to hold space for safety, but you have to also be able to, and that, there's compassion and kindness and vulnerability that comes with that. But you also have to be able to hold space for the tension that gets created when you bring different perspectives, different thoughts
Yeah,
together around a table. And when done well, it's how innovation happens. It's where the best creativity is. It's where the most productivity is found. But sadly, culture has become a thing that we need to hashtag dream team, and create happy workplaces.
we talk
And that's
about, and
not.
we spend lots of money on agencies to help us put things on the wall, but it really comes down to how we do things around here and how we feel about it. And you mentioned the word tension. Tension can come from a place of enthusiasm and passion, not because I want to be difficult, but because I care, or on the other end of the spectrum, but because I don't understand and I have frustration. So these are all fair and okay elements to all bring to the table, but it's the reaction that can cause the problem.
Absolutely. Yeah. No, beautiful insights. Thank you. Well, I'm going to get into my questions because honestly, I was so excited prepping for this. Um, I noticed on your LinkedIn profile recently that you quoted, well, you said, and this is not that I don't trust you. I absolutely believe you've probably had more, but you said that you've had over 170 AI conversations this year already. And
Yes.
I would love to know what insights from those conversations stand out the most for you.
Oh, and it's interesting because there's still common themes. Over 100 conversations with different clients across different sectors and different sizes. There is a movement in the conversation, and more of an interest and an awareness and a concern around the impact on people and culture, and the
Mm.
need to consider what are we doing to support capability, which is great because that's what we've been harping on about for 18 months or more now. Um, so the trend there is good, but there is still complacency in terms of what it really takes. There is still a bit of a disconnect, mainly because of allocations of fund around budget, because I guess this is the year that it is still new. If nobody has allocated budget in 2026, then you've got to be prepared to set yourself up for fail. What we're noticing most in conversations is a desire to, but still it's still more talk. The ones that have the agility and the balls to go all in with what it takes are still a little bit few and far between. So I would still say we're playing with AI.
Mm, yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Talking about talking about balls, I want to pick up on your point there about budget. Have you and Andrew got to a point where you're able to say a budget of X is the ideal amount to implement or optimize adoption of AI in your organization ethically? Because I know that's really important to you. So it's
Yeah.
not just about putting it in and letting it be done, ticking it off as done, but ethically to put AI into an organization. Have you got a sense of what a budget looks like to do that?
There's too many variables to be able to come back with, a true and a fair kind of answer for that. It's easier for smaller organizations because we will be talking about headcount if we want to give the skills. And I see them as future of work skills. So I think that there's also a moral and a social um, obligation and responsibility here for organizations to support people with skills that will be needed. But at the same, so therefore, companies with a larger headcount therefore need a larger budget in that respect. Of course, there's lots of different ways to skin a cat. I hate that saying, um,
We'll use it anyway.
but success also comes down to the strength and the alignment at the top table and their capability to support a layer within the organization and for them to be able to kind of scale that. So
Mm,
success doesn't have to correlate with allocating budget for every single person. It's how well the initial budget and commitment and dedication to drive the strategy and for it to be in line with the purpose of the organization and the vision and the values of the organization. AI shouldn't be a separate strategy. It's not a thing that we now have to do. It's now there is this technology. Could this solve some of our problems? It's also not something that automates every process because we might not need to automate this here because we really enjoy that part of our job. It might not be something we automate over there because actually, when we really look at it, why do we even do that? Because we always have. Well, what's the point in making an ineffective process more efficient? So let's actually just change that altogether. So these are the conversations we have at the top. I know I've gone a little bit off key with your question. I don't think you can put a cost to what it takes, but you can certainly put a cost to not doing it.
yeah, really fair comment. Really fair comment. I'm interested to know if there is a common feeling amongst, and let's focus on leaders for now, because I think what I took from your question there is, if I'm listening to this and I'm thinking about, oh, this AI thing, I really need to get to it. I've ignored it for as long enough, or I've left people to do their own thing with it for long enough. I really need to take a bit of control around this. It sounds like that purpose and alignment, or purpose and alignment of purpose at the top table is probably one of the places that you would advocate for starting first. Is there a common feeling amongst those leaders at that top table that are getting ready or already embracing AI? And how would you describe that feeling?
Yes, you're right. First of all, a great place to start is at the top. And that has been a challenge for some of the conversations that we've had because AI has been delegated out and away from the top table for you to do. And AI isn't something that we do, it's that something that we consider as a cohort of leaders. Is this something that will support our business goals and strategy? Um, in others, yes, there are some champions that are at the top table, and it varies from obviously ones that you would expect that are already in a tech role, and they may find it a challenge if there are if the MD or the CEO, for example, isn't behind it, which is where conversations like the ones we host in our exploration days can really help to kind of bring out what's behind that. Often it's because, oh, we've got too much going on in priorities right now, the classic heads down, bums up situation. But in other cases, we see the people leader, our HR director, championing. And I have to say, we absolutely love it when that happens, because this is a fabulous opportunity for HR as a profession to lead the charge. This is a people and capability opportunity to support movement of business and performance metrics. So
Mm.
I think they feel incredibly excited and a little bit scared at the same time.
Well, it's possible. It's possible to hold both of those feelings at the same time. But yeah, great. Thank you for actually getting to, defining what that feels like for those groups. You mentioned it. You mentioned a little bit earlier in our conversation, but as we kind of transition onto busting some myths and everyday applications around AI, I'd love to get any final thoughts you have around you've had a lot of conversations in 2025. Where do you hope the conversations shift to in 2026 based on everything you've learned this year? Where do you hope the conversations about AI shift to from a strategic perspective?
I think more along the sharing of best practice, because we would have had more time and evidence that we can work with. So I think there'll be a need to support that within organizations that may well already have, some fantastic use cases, but in businesses, regardless of size, often we're all guilty of working in silos from time to time, and sometimes we don't see what's going on over there that could really impact elsewhere. Um, and it's interesting because sharing of best practice, say in sectors, we work a lot in the housing sector, in the construction sector, how open organizations will be, and hopefully will be, to share the best practice across organizations, because I know even inside individual organizations, perhaps more commercially driven, are sometimes less keen to share best practice. If we're kicking it out the park at the moment, doing really well, I'm not going to tell them I'm doing it with AI. I hope that we would have moved a bit past that. I hope we would have moved past the it's cheating, because we all understand now how you work with it to just advance your thinking and ideas, and that there is much less of a Google approach to using these tools. And I think it's really exciting to, again, as agentic AI will be more on the radar next year, how we are further integrating this technology to enhance our work-life balance.
Yeah.
I'm gonna
Yeah.
talk about that. Obviously, from a business perspective, we like revenue and productivity, but let's face it, if we can get that and people are happier in their work, they're doing more impactful work, the work that they prefer doing, and can finish at a normal, reasonable time, hey,
Mm.
isn't that just utopia?
Well, I think one of the benefits I found of adopting AI ethically into how I not just work but live is that I've actually moved away from thinking about it as balance and focusing more on integration. And the reason I say that is balance to me felt like something that was it was always so precarious. Like it was always like, oh, I'm constantly in this
Should
position of
I? Should I?
holding,
Yes.
yeah, kind of
Yeah.
holding everything equal. And the reality is it never will be equal. It just won't be. Something will always require a bit more time and attention, and therefore there will be a compromise or a sacrifice to be made. So when I reframe, and so to stop me from always feeling like I was constantly failing, I reframed balance to integration, and it gave me a sense of control that allowed me to kind of say, no, I'm putting the pieces together of my life. And some days the puzzles in my life will be more work oriented, and other days they'll be more not work oriented. And that's just how it goes. And sometimes a piece of the puzzle will come out and it will never fit in. And sometimes I'll find a lost piece of the puzzle down the back of the sofa, right? Like it's not, it's not perfect. But AI has really helped me to
Yes.
integrate more than balance, which has been incredibly
And I think
helpful.
from an individual perspective, and obviously working in your own business, that makes complete sense, I guess. For individuals working in an organization where is expectations, and I really do hope that, I mean, I do believe COVID gave us so many positives throughout that experience of the importance of a healthy work environment and downtime, etc., etc. Um, and that so balance does come into play, I think, for that scenario where yes, you on a certain day you might need to actually give 60%, let's say, to my personal life because that's life, and it's 40% therefore to the business, but the following day it's the reverse, and that's okay because ultimately I am getting done what I need to do. Thank the Lord for the likes of these AI tools.
Yeah. Yeah, well, they become an enabler of that workplace culture, which is why I've always completely bought into what it is you're doing around AI culture and AI readiness. Because
Yeah.
if I, as a leader or a manager of a team, if I know that someone's at 40% today, but I also know that there are processes that they're responsible for that have been streamlined and are going to happen anyway, I can accept that, and
Yeah,
I don't
true.
have to fear it. I can accept it, and we can move. We can move forward with that cultural practice. Um,
Yeah.
your reflections on 2020, or your reflections for the conversation in 2026, have picked up on a couple of, again, LinkedIn research I did around the things that you've been up to, and I want to come back to the fact that you referenced working with the construction industry as one of the many industries that you are working with. And it got me thinking about a misconception I think exists. I may be wrong, so please challenge me on this, but I think there's a misconception that AI is for desk jobs or
Yeah.
traditional office roles, and that it's about either eliminating admin roles completely or stripping away the admin from roles, and that's what it amounts to. So I'm
Yes.
curious to know, particularly because you've worked in the construction industry, which is not traditionally desk-based office work. What myths can you bust for me and the listeners about AI actually being applicable in all types of work and in all types of industries?
Yeah, absolutely. And it's interesting because we ran an immersion program workshop this morning for a precision welding company, and they make and do precise welding, like micro precise welding for hospital MRI kit and nuclear kind of stations. And so they are less white collar, more engineers, and more on production floors. Safety, regulation, compliance are huge considerations for everything that they do. And we're looking at AI, how AI can improve some of their day to day. And so I'll come on to that. Same for housing associations, same for construction sites. And so let's take a look at a few. Housing associations and construction sites, in fact, and welders and any manufacturing. When you go out of the office and into the plant or onto the construction site or out to a tenant's property, let's say you're doing a health and safety review, you can take photos of what you see or potential problem areas. It's not replacing your eyes, but you see what you see. Maybe AI sees some additional things that you don't see. So it's an aid for us. It also captures a scenario. So we've got it documented together with a full transcript. So that's one of the ideas. Use it on site to talk into, almost as the dictation, and then it's written up the report. Use it for recording meetings out and about on site. Obviously, then the outcomes from any action points from that can be actioned and emailed immediately. Housing associations using the large language models to support how they communicate with vulnerable tenants, or perhaps those that are hard of hearing, or perhaps those that don't have English as their first language. There's so many different ways in which you can consider, and that's why we love to inspire people to develop an AI first mindset, because it isn't always about replacing how we do something. It's adding to, because I like to use it with a mindset of what could I have missed? Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I'm gonna jump around my questions a little bit here, because you've mentioned the AI first mindset. So for listeners who may not be familiar with that term, and so that they don't guess what it might mean, can you explain to us what you mean by that? And I'm particularly interested in you building that response in the context of so many organizations talk about and promote themselves as being people first
Yeah.
organizations. Often one of their core
Interesting.
values will be
Yeah.
people or customer first. So how does the AI first mindset, once you've explained it for us, how does that sit alongside organizations that claim to be people first?
Yeah, let's have a look at that and try and unpack that. So, an AI first mindset to me means, could AI help me with this task? It doesn't mean, could AI do this task for me? So, it's not about encouraging people to just offload everything and push everything towards AI. And the reason it is about, could it help me? Because often it can help to enhance the existing ideas that you have, or it can provide suggestions that we hadn't even thought of. So it's about covering more bases. It's like conferring and brainstorming with the ultimate expert in the subject area that we're talking about, just to double check if the ideas that I have are all encompassing and in the best way that they could be, as well as, is there a different way and a better way I could do this process? And so an AI first mindset, or a person that has an AI first mindset, has something to do on their list and they haven't used AI before for this, but thinks, I'm going to give it a go to see how I can produce this and use the learnings along the way. How that compares to a people first organization, I think when companies say that, it can be a little bit of it's just words. What they want to be is that everything they do and are and be, and their entire raison d'etre, is for the good of their people. It's hard to justify that in a lot of cases. AI first mindset, I think, should when I talk about it, it's from an individual's perspective, because we should own when and how we collaborate and partner
Mm,
with the model. And when I say the model, I mean ChatGPT or Google's Gemini or Copilot or Claude, whichever one you work with. It's your choice. But I think it's now almost a bit daft if you don't consider how and if
mm,
AI could help you.
mm. So it's about having the willingness to engage with it before you either answer the question yourself or deal with the problem yourself based on your expertise and what you know, or asking, because I fell into the trap of doing this, I'll just ask ChatGPT, how do I answer this?
Yes. Yes.
Where
So
actually,
it
I
isn't.
think the AI first mindset is about using it as, I use it now as kind of a critical thinking partner, in the
Yeah,
sense of what else can I learn about this? Or what different ways can I
exactly.
look at this before I come to
Yeah.
a final conclusion?
I was just about to say it is in complete conjunction with having a learning mindset, because we are experts at the things that we have done day to day in our jobs. We are also creatures of habit and do it the way that we've always done it. So it can be a challenge for some people, that learning mindset, because there is an element of, could this, could I do this better with the support and help of my um, my AI guru and assistant, partner, friend, whatever, however you want to refer to it. But yeah, that's on the money, Sarah.
It's just from an individual perspective, I know that you've been experimenting with AI at home in your personal life, and you've shared some really good stuff on LinkedIn about how you've used it, particularly around meal preparation. So
Yeah, it's always a
I'm
winner.
curious, yeah. So I'm curious to know if you've perhaps developed some new habits and rituals that AI has brought into your life as a result of how you're using it outside of your work.
Absolutely. And it goes back to something we were talking about earlier, um, how AI can support people. AI can support people with neurodiversity and learning difficulties, but at the same time, it can support those that don't have those challenges just in the areas that we're not very good at. So it gives us confidence and things that we wouldn't necessarily previously have gone down the route of doing or trying. And the same in personal life. So, for example, I now have a GPT which analyzes all of my utility bills. And so it can keep track of all of my, and I know we have smart meters, but this can not only compares all of my utility bills and my usage, so it then on a quarterly basis scans the rest of the providers to tell me if I could be paying less elsewhere. I would have
That's
never have
amazing.
considered to have done anything like that before. I would just always got a big stash of all of the pieces of paper of bills and have never even looked at them really. But now I'm like, hang on a minute. And I think that came from me realizing I was being a little bit shafted, sorry listeners, by things like car insurance and house insurance, because I forgot to look at them. They just auto renewed until last year. I went to have a look at my car insurance. I just thought I'd just have a little look. Well, bugger me. It was, I got, could, everywhere else was half what I was paying, because they'd just gone, oh, she hasn't seen, go on, put it up some more. She hasn't seen, put it up some more. So I thought, hang on a minute. So rather you do the go compare and whatever. So I scan it for my bills now. And I also use for renovating my house, because I'm really rubbish at maths and calculations. So in terms of, if I've got a wall that's this wide and I want to do this and I want to do that, so it's a pocket guide for whatever it is that I need to do. Oh, and cooking, yeah, because you can have it on the voice mode talking back to you the instructions for the actual dish. and I don't want to be stopping and reading. I want them with me while I'm doing it.
There's so many questions I want to ask you. I'm going to have you back for a second talk, I can tell. But what I'd love to just reference a couple of final questions around some data that you shared recently. I think it was probably a team that you were doing one of your workshops with. And there was a team of 19 people that you shared data that I guess you'd collected via Mentimeter or some other tool
Yes.
within your workshop. And 42% of that group of people said that they were only using AI as if it was Google, which you
Yes. Or
then
had.
went, which in the data was then described as them being curious, which I can see. What I'm now curious about is, what do you think people need to feel more than curious to be able to move beyond AI as a search
Yeah.
replacement to Google?
Yeah, and we say curious to be kind, really, but it's because they've come across it or they've been given access to it and nothing else. So it's like, oh, I'll have a little go. To move the needle, it has to be relevant to your individual day to day and your challenges. That's why you can't really evangelize about AI just because it can do this and it can do that, it can do the other, because trust me, that's how we started. And we had a lot of people at the beginning of of our journey go away, you're weird. Because
Not me.
no, not you. We hadn't appreciated that in order to get traction and for people to buy into anything, it's got to be relevant and it's got to solve what is meaningful to that person. And so this is where it's important when we support an AI and build AI champions in an organization, is because part of their role won't be to evangelize AI in terms of, right, you've got a license, why aren't you using it? When are you using it? Use ChatGPT for that. It's tell me about, what you've got on your plate this week. Where are your blockers? What are your challenges? What are you worried about? And it's from that conversation that the response would be, let me show you how ChatGPT could actually help there. When
Mm,
I mean, I can't tell you the amount of times in workshops where we've had people that are on the very kind of fixed mindset around AI, scared of it, don't understand it, have only used it like Google before, think it's cheating. But when we show people how to use it correctly, but also how it can solve something that's meaningful to them, boy, does that needle move to, well, what? So it could do that. Does it do this? Could I do that? And that's real curiosity.
yeah. I think as well though that there is an element of having to feel connected to the problem that I want to solve, and feeling empowered in a way to be able to use the tool for that purpose, which
Yeah,
I think does come, that explains why leaders have to buy into this rather than delegate it out, because their
100%.
role their role is going to be in coaching people to enable them and empower them to use AI. I guess it almost needs to be kind of the coaching questions that you typically ask also need to have an AI first mindset or
Yeah,
AI first lens applied to them, right? Um,
totally. That's completely right. And we've seen time and time again, participants that are on one of our AI kickstart programs or immersion programs that has been kind of purchased over here, but then
mm,
somebody up the chain has said to them, "Oh, I think AI is cheating, so I don't want you using that." And then when we've come back together, that one particular individual said, "Well, I haven't really used this much because my boss doesn't agree with it." That's the lemon drizzle that feeds through down into the organization. And so 100%, you can't delegate AI in that respect.
mm,
Absolutely not.
yeah. At the other end of the scale, one of the questions that was asked in the same piece of data collection that you did was around whether people feel that they can't live without
Yeah,
AI
that's
yet. Love that question, because personally I would have
polarizing
put
one.
my hand up. I
Yeah,
would have put my hand up and said, I get anxious if I go into ChatGPT and it looks like it's down, like I get anxious at that. Um, so I guess I'm curious, have you got a sense of how long it typically takes for someone to reach that point of feeling that they can't live without it? And also, what are the risks and
yeah.
the downsides of us feeling like that?
Yeah, it's a really interesting one, isn't it? Because can't live without it is uncomfortable for some people
Mm,
because there's a feeling of lack of control or losing our own mental capacity and ability to do certain things. And it's a really interesting debate and conversation. Andrew often refers back to the adage of the sat nav. When that first came out, you would have had a lot of people going, well, you're going to lose your map reading skills. There's always a quid pro quo, I guess, for new ways of doing things. And yes, losing elements that you could say were non-value add and I didn't enjoy them anyway. So, the question is, does it matter? It's really interesting that the data that you're referring to was from a group of people that had access to, I think it was Copilot. Maybe that was part of the reason that the adoption wasn't so great, because it's still a bit
mm,
crap. But they'd had it for 6 months. So that tells you in 6 months, we've got people going, where's the on button? We've got a large portion of people going, I use it a bit like Google, or I have to keep reminding myself to have a go. And we've got a
yes.
quarter or so, 25%, I think it was, that is using it on a day-to-day basis. But as you rightly point out, nobody in that case couldn't live without it. Without guidance, I'm going to say at least 6 months or so in their case, that hadn't even hit that point yet. I think only a small percentage would probably get there without guidance, because let's face it, if something doesn't work, you often give up, don't you? Or if it gives you out some hallucinations, or you don't trust it because you haven't learned how to build that relationship to quality check, then I don't think you might never get there in that respect. So
Mm,
how long does it really take? 8 weeks in our full champion immersion program. I would like to suggest, and confidently suggest, most of our participants will be saying, I couldn't live without it. Possibly not all to the point of absolute fear of God and cry and tears, but it would just mean, bugger, I'm going to have to go back and do it the hard way. Whereas my mindset now is, I wouldn't be able to do what I get through and do on a day-to-day basis. It's
yes.
10x more than an
Yeah.
individual without AI.
Yeah, there's a real pattern occurring in what you've just said there, which is you feel uncomfortable, you step into the discomfort, you embrace the discomfort, you realize that your life, productivity, whatever it is actually far superior if you adopt it. And then you start to fear the discomfort of someone taking it away and
Yeah,
realizing
yeah.
that your life before was really hard and you've made
Yes.
your life a lot easier as the result. So yeah, brilliant. Um,
Absolutely. So please, Lord, let these big players not completely knacker us by making them £1,000 a month or whatever else. I mean, there's elements of me that for me would be like, I would pay it, but in the for scale and for organizations, come on, please don't bugger us all up now.
no, keep it accessible, because that's how people are going to continue on this journey. I could not agree more. Some fabulous, as I knew, some fabulous insights, a ton more I could ask you. So expect a return invitation.
I
And
hope so,
listeners,
Sarah.
if you've got questions, please do let me know what more you would like to find out from Lucy. But on that note, on that note, Lucy, thank you for sharing your wisdom, but also thank you for I remember the first time we met in that classroom, and you were definitely an inspiration for me around AI adoption, because of your honesty about the the real world application of it, and your ability to stand in a place of challenge and tension, as we talked about at the start. And in spite of that feeling uncomfortable at times, it was so necessary for my own learning journey that I will always be grateful to you for that. So thank you.
Oh, bless you. And you know what, Sarah, I'm not very technical. Don't tell anyone. And that's the bottom line. This is, I mean, that's the beauty and why, yes, AI has been around for a very long time, but it was only obviously since the floodgates opened from OpenAI and ChatGPT that it brought it to the masses and the non-techies. And if I can, anybody can. But for me, it always has to be relevant, and it has to be explainable, and it has to be of value. Um, and that's everything that I do and bring, hopefully, to Uptake AI and for the people that come on the journey with us. It isn't about being a technical wizard, and there's lots I don't know, and there's loads that I learn from every discussion and conversation about how an organization is approaching it in this area and what technology other people are using there and the challenges they're having, and then ideas that people come back with each week. It needs to be a huge global social learning journey. And I'll come back to what I said earlier. No one ever has done and knows everything about AI. No one.
Brilliant. Thank you again, Lucy. It's been a pleasure chatting to you this afternoon. Listeners, thank you again for showing up and engaging with the Culturevating Leader podcast. Please subscribe so you don't miss the next episode, and I will see you all very soon. Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Thanks so much for listening to the Culturevating Leader podcast. If today's episode has sparked something in you, please share it, tag me, or leave a review. It really helps us to get to more leaders and help them discover the power of emotional culture. To learn more about how we help organisations to build a culture that aligns with their purpose, head to culturevator.co.uk or connect with me on LinkedIn. And remember, if you want your clients to feel X, then your people need to feel your Y. So, what's inspired you today to be a cultivating leader? Until the next episode, let's keep culture at the heart of how we lead.